I've been trying to get this camera, my phone, to sit in the right position so I can make this video. So I don't care what it is right now. It is what it is. Alright, so I want to start off by saying that this video is geared towards the ladies because it has to do with our cycles, or lack thereof, our cycles, and mental health. So I just want to say that up front, so if the men are like, nah, I don't really want to watch this, you can just stop it now. But if you're interested in watching and getting a little more insight, then, feel free to watch. Excuse me. Alright, so I wanted to talk about these issues because I think that it can, at least in my personal experience, I think it can affect my mental state, or at least intensify or increase in frequency. And I just thought I would talk about, just like give an example of like something that I've experienced personally, and then sort of ask you ladies some questions about that, like the parts that I really can't answer. And I don't know, I think it'll just help to give a little bit more insight as far as our perspective goes about this. Of course, there is the other perspective of like a spouse or a loved one who, who sees it from their point of view, but this video is specifically from our point of view, or at least my point of view, because it's my video. So feel free to leave a comment, and if you want to ask me a more personal question or talk to me about something personal to do with you, don't leave it in the comments. Actually send me a private message. That way that information isn't for everyone to read. And if you ask me certain questions and I decline to answer them, please don't get upset. I reserve the right to answer or not answer any questions, not just about this video, but any video that I put up. Some things are personal, and I don't want people to know about them. Not everything everyone should know. So, but I will, like, answer questions that I think are appropriate. And also, feel free to make your own video about your experiences, because I'm talking about women who are having a cycle, and also women who are having their cycle but are soon to stop it because they're going through menopause, and then the women who are no longer in menopause and are past that. So it covers pretty much anyone who has hit puberty in terms of starting their cycle and then going from that point all the way to the other end. So I will start off by talking about the one thing that comes to mind most for me is that I've noticed I didn't when I started my cycle at a young age. I was 10. and I as I went through my teenage years, because it's such a confusing and eventful time in terms of your body changing and that sort of thing, I never really noticed And of course, I didn't realize that I suffered from bipolar disorder. So I didn't really notice anything. I just thought I was a very moody teenager. And then as I became an adult, because I had my child when I was 20, so I didn't have, I guess, a lot of experience before I had a child about like the symptoms of my cycle as opposed to the symptoms of like a mental illness. And so I never really pieced together anything until I was actually diagnosed with bipolar and borderline personality disorder, and doing the research on that with the symptoms and everything. I realized that in my case, sometimes the symptoms of my cycle, or PMS, or whatever you want to call it, can sometimes mimic symptoms of bipolar or BPD or whichever one, because your moods can change frequently. Or you can be in a really, really good mood and then suddenly you're just falling apart or whatever, So it wasn't until recently, really, like in the last 6 months, maybe a year, that I kind of started paying attention. And it's only because and I never really put it together, that right before it, it's either no longer than 7 days before, or it's usually a couple days, or the day right before, or even a couple hours before, but it's always before. I will suddenly, and I thought this was because of, maybe unresolved issues or what have you, but I didn't necessarily think it was because of my cycle, but I do get this intense anger that seems to come from nowhere. There's not a trigger. It's not, nobody made me upset. I mean, there's just not a reason for it. And that can happen with bipolar. I mean, it's not really because of a trigger. I mean, triggers can exacerbate, the symptoms, at least in my case. I'm talking about me now. Can exacerbate my symptoms, but usually there's not a reason. There's not a rhyme or reason to what happens or how it happens, as opposed to like BPD, where that is more of a it's a lot of it is triggered. It is triggered. Yeah, it's triggers. So, and I only noticed it because people would say, you sound really mean today, and da da da, and like, oh, you just snapped at me or whatever, and why are you suddenly so angry? Like those kinds of things. They would say that to me, and I'd be like, I don't know. And I'd think about it, and I'm like, I don't know. And then I'd have, like, the next day or a couple hours later or a week later, and that's why, like, I didn't chalk it up to that, because sometimes it was like 7 days before, and it only happened like 1 day, maybe 2 days. So I didn't think there was a link, but I've started to realize that there is a link, and it isn't necessarily my mental illness. It is my cycle, which is okay. At least I'm starting to recognize what's what, I guess. However, sitting on paper. However, I think that having my cycle and suffering from my current issues, I think sometimes they go hand in hand, or not necessarily hand in hand, but one sort of feeds the other or makes it more intense or more frequent. And I guess the best example I can come up with to give you an idea of what I mean is I have a video that I posted. I think it's called Rapid Cycling Mixed Episodes or something like that, where I'm actually showing you what is happening to me while I'm having a mixed episode. And I remember when I recorded that video, I was not on my cycle. And I guess to give you an idea of what it would have looked like, I guess, is, imagine that video, but instead of me crying all the time, I'm angry. Angry, angry, angry. And it's more intense. And you probably don't want to talk to me that day because I can get really mean. And it's just this need to let this energy, wherever it comes from, obviously from my hormones and whatnot, it's just to let it go out of my body, and I can get really mean. People get scared of me sometimes because I'm so mean. I don't mean to be mean. It's not really funny. I know I'm laughing. It's mostly out of kind of nervousness about I'm thinking about it and eh. But in the moment I don't care. I really don't. I'm gonna let it out, and if you're in my way, then you're in my way. That's why I tend to stay home during those times. But anyway, that video would be even if it was with the crying, say I was having the mixed episode and having those moments of anger. Just imagine that video, how it is, add anger, intense anger, and multiply that video times 10, times 20, times whatever you want to times it by, and that would be, I guess, how it is for me inside, how I feel if I was to have a mixed episode at the same time as experiencing PMS symptoms. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but that's kind of the best way I can describe it and give you an example. I hate sitting. I'm sitting on the floor, and because I've had back surgery, my nerves, I can't sit for very long, and I talk a lot in my videos. I'll try to make it as short as I can, but I tend to go on and on. Ah! No! I'm so sorry about that, guys. See, I got all excited, and I just knocked everything down. I wish I just had a camera. It'd be so much easier instead of using my phone. It wouldn't fall all the time. Sorry about that. Okay, so I think that the symptoms of my cycle or PMS or whatever can exacerbate my symptoms of bipolar, possibly BPD, especially with the rapid mood changes, and it's for no apparent reason. That is more of a BPD trait rather than bipolar, but it doesn't really matter. If you suffer from both, then you can suffer all these symptoms all at the same time. So, I think it's good to, because what I've been doing is I've started tracking my moods again and tracking all that stuff, and I think it would be good for me, and I encourage all of you to track your cycles. And I don't just mean just track when you have your cycle, but the all the stuff that goes around it, like the week before, the week of, and the week after. It depends on how long it is too, but I'm just giving you an example. And just like when you start to feel that, I mean, not everyone has symptoms, but the ones who do experience symptoms, I just think it would be good so you can kind of see if there's a link. Like, are your PMS symptoms happening while you're having other symptoms? Does it increase the symptoms or vice versa? You know what I mean? Just get a better idea of what's happening with your body and how it's affecting your mind, your moods, your whatever illness it is that you have, or illnesses. Usually we have more than one. Of course, that isn't for everybody. I'm kind of sitting up against the chair, so if I'm looking this way, I'm sorry. I'm tired. Yeah. So I just encourage you to kind of do that and just kind of see what's going on so you can have an idea of when you have episodes, we'll say, with your illnesses, and when you have the symptoms of your cycle. And if you are going to counseling, I would say talk about that with your counselor and just see, because maybe sometimes there might be other ways to deal with something if you have like another perspective from a different angle. You're looking at physiological, biological, chemical processes now rather than just emotions necessarily. Because a lot of those emotions that happen during that time are really because of a chemical process that's going on in your body. So it's not necessarily how you actually feel. At least not for me. So, and also, I want to include the ladies out there who suffer from a severe eating disorder where they have where you no longer have a cycle, or your cycle is very sporadic, or what have you. How does that affect you? How does not having a cycle when you should have a cycle affect your mood, affect your body? Like, how does that work for you? You don't have to answer me, but I think you should ask yourselves this question and work with your doctors if you are seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whomever it is, and just find out how that affects you. I think it's important to have as much information as you possibly can about yourself. So that's a question for you ladies. And then the other ladies that I'm referring to are those who are going through menopause. Again, the same questions. How does it affect you? Do you see a change from when you were younger, like in your 20s, as opposed to being in your 30s or 40s or whatever age that you happen to have started menopause at? I don't know much about menopause because I'm not there yet, but maybe you ladies can give us an insight as to what we may expect as we get older and go through menopause. And also, the ladies who are now out of menopause and are on the other side. What is your experience? What has your experience been like? How do you deal with your mental illness now that your body has changed in a different way? Because at that point you have less of the hormones that you used to have in terms of like estrogen. I think you get less. See, I really know nothing about menopause. But I think you get less estrogen and maybe more testosterone. I think that's how that works. And there's all kinds of other hormones going on too. It's not just those two, but those are the main ones people know about. So, just how does that work? And like I said, you can message me if you would like, or you can make your own video, or just talk about it with your own doctor. These aren't necessarily questions you have to answer to me or anyone else. But I think these are good questions for yourselves as well. So I really haven't really seen many videos about this topic. So I just thought it was just an interesting perspective to kind of throw that in there, because what happens to our bodies, I think, does affect us mentally. For sure. I have no doubt about that, especially for me. I know it really does. So, yeah, okay, well, I'm gonna go. I'm getting tired. Oh, it's past 11, or it is 11. I don't even know what time it is. My clocks are all different. Okay, it's 11:06. I'm drinking my sleepy time tea, or whatever it's called, to help soothe me. Alright, well, I'm gonna go. I hope everyone is doing well. And hopefully I can upload videos more quickly, I guess, because I now have my own internet again. I was trying to use the Wi-Fi, the free Wi-Fi that they have in the building, but I don't really get it in my apartment, so it was hard for me to make videos. I had to try to find a place in my apartment that maybe did it, and it would take hours to upload. It might not have seemed like it to you necessarily, but for me it definitely was harder to work with with that lack of internet. So, alright. I'm seriously gonna go now. You can tell I'm tired. I'm acting all silly. I'm getting all giggly. Alright. Everyone, I will talk to you later. Take care of yourselves. Bye.